So apparently the Iran negotiations, it was a ceasefire. United States under Trump agreed to a 10-point Iran plan. And then J.D. Vance, after being in Hungary on behalf of the Russian government and the United States to help promote Orban in Hungary, goes to Pakistan. Got to understand, Pakistan's very, very corrupt. But they're in the negotiations. Steve Witkoff's there. Witkoff et al., that family, Jared Kushner. Amazing how much money these guys are making off of the markets, off of Bitcoin. Criminal way of moving money around. But nonetheless, here we are. Trump-Iran negotiations collapse in Pakistan. Take it away there, Ben.
The talks in Islamabad between the United States and Iran have failed. Let me repeat that. The talks in Islamabad between the United States and Iran have failed, despite Donald Trump stating that he would agree to negotiate within Iran's 10-point framework, which began this ceasefire process leading to negotiations between the Trump regime, the United States, and Iran in Islamabad. When the negotiations started to take place in Islamabad, the Trump regime wanted to change the negotiating framework and wanted to impose Donald Trump's plans on Iran. Iran refused, said, you agreed to our framework. The negotiations lasted over 14 hours. J.D. Vance just came out moments ago and stated that the negotiations are now over. He says, Iran refuses to accept our ultimatum and our demands. And this is very bad news, J.D. Vance says, but it's much worse for Iran. It's worse news for them than it is for the United States. Moments ago, J.D. Vance went out and held a press conference saying that these peace talks are now off. Iran's refusing to accept the demands being unilaterally imposed by the United States. And I should note, while J.D. Vance is holding this press conference, folks, Donald Trump is in Florida at a UFC match right now where Secretary of State Marco Rubio is there clapping for Donald Trump walking all around looking cognitively and physically addled at this UFC match right now, while the negotiations in Islamabad have completely broken down. Folks, this appears to mean that the war is going to resume. Frankly, as I was saying before, this was a ceasefire, a name only, a way for Donald Trump just to manipulate the markets. Now, here is what J.D. Vance said in the press conference moments ago from Islamabad, saying that there is no agreement. He says Iran has chosen not to accept our terms. Here, play this clip.
Marshall Munir, who were both incredible hosts, and whatever shortcomings in the negotiation, it wasn't because of the Pakistanis, who did an amazing job.
So here we got Pakistanis did an amazing job. Pakistanis, a number of years ago, I was trying to take some raw iron ore or raw iron, scrap iron, into Karachi. You couldn't. It was so corrupt. Everything was getting stolen out of the port in Karachi. Now here you have J.D. Vance just after being in Hungary. Steve Witkoff right behind him off to his right shoulder. And to the right of Steve Witkoff, out of the frame, Jared Kushner. Witkoff, his family, Kushner, profitingly, amazing profits. Everybody complained about $50,000 a month that Biden's son was getting from Burisma. These guys are raping the country and the world for billions of dollars. And you don't even bat an eyelid. You think it's normal stuff. Listen to J.D. Vance trying to change the deal with Iran. They've got a framework with Iran, but then they say, well, we're going to go in and... This is the way Trump deals. Trump is not a deal maker. He doesn't know how to do a good deal, period. It's the people of America that are the support people that do the good deals. This guy Trump hasn't got a clue how to do anything. One-dimensional chess, that's beyond his comprehension. And you got to realize that you've two terms. You people have given him 2 terms. No excuse for that nonsense. The Americans, you really have to, you got to accept the reality that you've lost your way. You're standing in the world He's gone in the crapper. Who's your new allies? Russia? Now come on. Like, give your head a shake. And you're allowing this stuff to go on? You did it the first term. After a January 6th insurrection, never had anything like that happen in the history of the United States. You give this guy a second term. And you're not batting an eyelid? This is criminal. It's unbelievable what you're allowing to happen.
And really tried to help us and the Iranians bridge the gap and get to a deal. We have been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on.
Yeah, what were you willing to accommodate them on? This would be interesting to hear. Was there anything that you're willing to accommodate them on? I don't think so. But here's the irony of it all. There was already a deal to keep all this uranium in check. There was a deal. Trump ripped it up. Then he has a war. Causes pain and suffering for everybody to try to renegotiate a deal that was already in place that did everything you needed. This is the stupidity of this Trump administration. And you don't think twice about it. Listen to J.D. Vance.
And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
Well, it should be noted that the United States accepted Iran's terms, the 10-point plan, going into this negotiation, and then Donald Trump does what Donald Trump always does his entire life, commit fraud, and try to change the terms. If you didn't like the terms to begin with, then don't agree to Iran's 10-point negotiating framework, where Iran would be able to continue enriching uranium, control the Strait of Hormuz, and charge $2 million per vessel. It would provide security guarantees for Iran, Hezbollah, Iran proxy groups like the Houthis, and the Shiites in the Shiite militia groups in Iraq. It would provide full reparations to Iran, remove all sanctions from Iran. Y'all agreed to the 10-point term, Trump regime. Then you went in there and said, nope, we're not agreeing to it. We want to control the Strait of Hormuz. We want to do a joint venture with you. And Iran's like, well, that's not what you agreed to, and that's not what we're agreeable with. We control the Strait of Hormuz. More from J.D. Vance right here, who said, we just could not get to a situation where the Iranians were willing to accept our terms. He repeats that again. Let's play this clip.
Was there a framework on anything? And also, did the Iranian frozen assets come up, and did you reach any conclusions on those frozen assets?
We talked about all those issues, Jen, and we talked about a number of issues beyond that. And so certainly those things came up. But again, we just could not get to a situation where the Iranians were willing to accept our terms. I think that we were quite flexible. We were quite accommodating. The president told us, you need to come here in good faith and make your best effort to get a deal. We did that. And unfortunately, we weren't able to make any headway. Preston.
And then he goes on to say it's really Iran's fault because we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon, and they refuse to agree to our terms on that point. Well, they agreed to your terms on that point in late February, and then you invaded with Netanyahu Iran anyway. And then in the 10-point framework, it actually says, I mean, we all read it, Iran can continue uranium enrichment. Or play this clip right here.
Questions?
So, Nick Robertson from CNN. Precisely what have they rejected here? Can you help us understand it a little bit?
Well, I won't go into all the details because I don't want to negotiate in public after we negotiated for 21 hours in private.
Negotiate in public? Sounds like you were saying this is my terms, take it or leave it. So there was no negotiation. You're saying the negotiations are over now after 14 to 21 hours or thereabouts. Instead of saying, well, we'll take a break and reconvene and we got to try and get some movement on these points, you're just saying the talks are over. Like, come on now. Like, what kind of negotiation is this?
But the simple fact is that we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon, and they will not seek the tools that would enable them to quickly achieve a nuclear weapon. That is the core goal of the President of the United States, and that's what we've tried to achieve through these.
Yeah, you had that agreement already in place before Trump's first term of 2016, and Trump ripped it up in 2018. So you had that agreement 11 years ago. And Mr. Dealmaker tried to make a better deal, and now he's trying to make a deal that's similar to the one that was originally in place after you've killed how many people? Caused pain and suffering for how many people around the world? And you sit there and stand there behind that podium and justify your existence like you are the one? Like you are the chosen ones? Come on now.
Negotiations. Again, their nuclear program, such as it is, the enrichment facilities that they had before, they've been destroyed. But the simple question is, do we see a fundamental commitment of will for the Iranians not to develop a nuclear weapon, not just now, not just 2 years from now, but for the long term? We haven't seen that yet. We hope that we will. Jen.
Was there a framework on anything? And also, did the Iranian...
Now, before J.D. Vance announced that the negotiations in Iran the negotiations with Iran and Islamabad were a failure, we were hearing from Iran's regime media. Here's what they posted. The excessive demands of the American side, especially regarding the Strait of Hormuz, have so far prevented the establishment of a common framework for negotiations. Negotiations continue, and it is unclear whether they will definitely be extended for one day or the terms will return to the capitals for consultation. So that was before it was officially announced. Negotiations off. Talks are an utter failure. And what they were saying is that the very framework of the negotiation could not even be agreed upon because when the U.S. showed up, J.D. Vance and Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner changed the entire framework of the negotiations. There was also an incident in the Strait of Hormuz earlier today where the United States claimed it sent 2 destroyers to successfully sweep mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Then CENTCOM posted a successful mission was launched by the United States to open up the Strait of Hormuz. They were bragging about it. Turned out that was a complete and utter lie. There were a few ships that got through the Strait of Hormuz. A Chinese vessel, an Indian vessel were the vessels that actually left. Not these 2 destroyers. What actually happened, and now that's being confirmed by independent news sources as well, is that the United States tried to send 2 destroyers through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran then sent its navy out and said, if you continue, we're going to blow up these ships. The destroyers of the United States Navy turned around and went the other way. And then CENTCOM in the United States claimed that there was a successful mission when the U.S. destroyer ships tried to sneak in during the mediation and the settlement discussions that were taking place in Islamabad. That's when the U.S. tried to use that opportunity to get the destroyers in. That was not successful, but there was the Chinese ship and the Indian ship that were able to go in there. Also, the Wall Street Journal and New York Times and others were reporting that the Chinese are now providing a lot more weapons and supplies to Iran, anti-aircraft weapons, as well as other technologies that would be critical if this war is to resume. Going back more to what Iran's media was talking about as it relates to these negotiations before it was declared a total failure, they write, a new round of trilateral negotiations between Iran, the United States, and Pakistan began just minutes ago. Tasman correspondent dispatched to the negotiation site said the following: given the excessive demands of the United States, it appears this is the Iranians' team final opportunity to the Americans for reaching a common framework for this round of talks. So folks, we didn't even get to the framework because the U.S. showed up and tried to change the negotiating framework. So there were hours and hours of no progress. The U.S. wanted to control the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. wanted to impose its terms. Iran said, no, they're not doing that. Iran also put out the following message through their official Navy correspondence. They write, any attempt by military vessels to pass through the Strait of Hormuz will face a firm response. The IRGC Navy has full authority and maintains intelligent control over the Strait of Hormuz, is what they write. Now, there's always a tweet for everything. Donald Trump back on January 3rd, 2020 writes, Iran never won a war, but never lost a negotiation. Now, before Donald Trump went to that UFC fight and before the negotiations officially were declared a failure, Donald Trump was giving a bizarre and deranged press conference from outside of the White House where he said, we're sweeping the Strait of Hormuz. Whether we make a deal or not, we've won. Like a miracle, the Strait of Hormuz Hormuz is open. No, Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz. You tried to send destroyers in there while there were negotiations taking place in Islamabad, and then that destroyer turned the opposite direction. Here's what Donald Trump said. Play this clip.
We're going to see what happens. We're in very deep negotiations with Iran. We win regardless. We've defeated them militarily. They've dropped a couple of water mines. You call them water mines in the boat. We've defeated all of their water boats too. Their Navy has gone 158 ships. They have 28 water droppers, mine droppers they call them. All of them are sunk. They probably have a couple of mines in the water. We have mine sweepers out there. We're sweeping the Strait. In addition to that, we're negotiating. Whether we make a deal or not makes no difference to me.
Then a reporter said, so it's clear that Iran is not going to leave the Strait of Hormuz. And then Trump starts yelling at the reporter. Play this clip.
Have you read the docs that Iran is listening to your threats about reopening the Strait of Hormuz?
How do you know that? Why do you say that?
Are they reopening?
Why do you say that? You don't know anything. Who are you with?
NBC News doing circuit.
ABC?
NBC.
Well, let's make news.
Mr. President.
Let me just tell you, we win, no matter what. We've defeated their military. They have no navy. 158 ships are underwater, undersea. All of their minesweepers and all of their, they call them mine droppers. Can you imagine? A country has 28 mine droppers. You think that's nice? With all of that being said, they're all defeated, by the way. They're all at the bottom of the sea. Now, with all of that, they have no navy. They have no radar. They have no air force. Their leaders are all dead. Khomeini is gone. For many years, he ruled. He's gone. With all of that, let's see what happens. But from my standpoint, I don't care. Thank you.
And Donald Trump's like, even though we don't need to do anything and we don't like NATO and we don't care about Europe or our allies, he's like, that doesn't matter. We're still cleaning up the Strait of Hormuz anyway. Play this clip.
The media, credibility down to 13%. Think of it. We defeated their Navy. We defeated their Air Force. We defeated their anti-aircraft. We defeated their radar. We defeated their leaders. Their leaders are all dead. And now all we do is we'll open up the Strait even though we don't use it because we have a lot of other countries in the world that do use it that are either afraid or weak or cheap. I don't know what it is, but we were not helped by NATO, that I can tell you.
Then Donald Trump responds to a reporter asking about the possibility that China is sending weapons to Iran. Here's what Donald Trump said. He just starts like getting angry and starts yelling. Here, play this clip.
Let's see what happens. But from my standpoint, I don't care. Thank you. Well, if China does that, China could have big problems. Okay?
Yep, so as Ross Hendricks explains, it should be now obvious that Trump's acknowledgement that Iran's 10-point plan was an acceptable framework for negotiations was yet another attempt and desperate attempt by the Trump regime to manipulate the markets last week. The U.S. is not in any way interested in accepting the 10-point negotiating framework. The negotiations have failed. While they have failed, Donald Trump is now making social media posts about UFC fights in front of the White House. The UFC Freedom Fight, 250th Freedom Fight, 250th anniversary. Folks, an utterly deranged regime in the United States, an utter failure by the United States. Remember, the United States says Iran has no cards. Well, they just use their cards, folks. We'll keep you posted throughout the day. Hit subscribe. Help us get to...
So there you go. Isn't that amazing? Before the first term of Trump, you had a deal where international atomic scientists went into Iran to make sure the uranium and all their facilities were acceptable to the agreement. You had the agreement. Now you have a guy trying to, he's terrifying everybody in the world. He's fighting with everybody in the world, makes allies with Russia that invades Ukraine, would invade Canada if he could have gotten away with it. He threatened to steal Greenland from the Denmark. NATO, even NATO is just a defensive structure. It's never meant to invade and destroy like Trump wants to Just wants to take things. Just wants to take the oil from Venezuela. Wants to take Cuba. Who else is he going to invade? Like, where's this guy going to stop? He threatens the Pope. And then you've got a department, a Defense Department. They'll change the name, which, it's illegal under the statutes. War Department, like committing war crimes, along with Netanyahu and the Israelis committing war crimes. Even Bertrand Russell in 1970, before he died, sent a paper to the UN that the Zionist Jewish movement was way out of line. They're stealing land by using war to capture land and creeping upon the land that wasn't even given to them to make their land mass larger. You got to understand, the deal with the Palestinians was forced upon the Palestinians. There was no Israeli state before that, and the Israelis have abused that privilege. They started the Suez War and a lot of other wars. Other people have committed wars too, so this war nonsense has got to stop. There's other ways of doing things, because civilians, people that just want to live their lives, whether they practice any religion or culture, is up to them. So what's going on here is not very good. You got the American administration going to Hungary to put Orban in position. They put a Russian proxy into Poland. They had Kristi Noem down there in Poland promoting the Russian proxy to compete with Tusk. So this guy Donald Trump Jr. has got an interest in the poly markets that are profiting immensely on this war through the poly markets. They're legitimizing Bitcoin. So that's a way that they can collect money and nobody can do anything about it. UAE gave him $2 billion, not including the big jet worth $400 million that Erdogan and Turkey got the other sister jet worth $400 million. So this corruption is much more massive than you realize. People are being used and abused, and you're allowing this to happen. It's criminal, and it's a disgrace. It should not be allowed. So love and peace to everyone. We can change this all. Just get rid of these people. They're not serving you. Put people in there that serve the people. This is what we've got to get back to. Love and peace to everyone. Take care. Ciao for now. Be safe. Be good.